Welcome back, you guys. I think we're going to have a pretty interesting build here today that we're going to be working on. Now, one of the first things I want to say is I think this is kind of overdue. We've had a lot of people reach out to us for the FN509 type of patterns, what's offered. Of course, we've obviously done several different versions of the Hive with side windows. Some of them have a Cobra nose, lots of optic cuts. We started offering the Raptor cut on the 509 with a single top window. So some services have really started to evolve over the last several months, but I think it's time to really build another advanced project. Now, one of the things I first want to say before we get too deep into this, and that is we've done several pretty advanced builds that we really haven't shown you guys, or we didn't really do a build video on them, and I'm going to include some pictures in here so you guys can kind of see. So sometimes not everything you see on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook is all that is offered. Occasionally we'll build one for ourselves, and what ends up happening is we just don't end up doing a build video. So it's something that's offered. It is a service that can be done. However, it's really not customer facing where it's easy for you guys to find it and things like that. So sometimes it is best to reach out. Is there anything else that you offer? Is there something else that you've done? Is there something else that you want to do? And we can make some of those recommendations for you before you actually go down the path of choosing something that's only available in your eyes. So with that being said, this happens to be one of mine. I had the opportunity to pick this up locally from an individual, I think, who was going to one of the tactical versions. That's the optic ready. And for me, it wasn't a real big deal because we're going to put an optic on it anyhow. So so I thought, yeah, let's grab it. Let's see what we can do. Sat down and I thought, man, the Hive is just such a popular build. Why don't we build one for some of the gun shows? So once some of the gun shows start coming back around again, we would have one to talk about. Of course, we are at a new facility now. This is not the same stainless table. The lighting's slightly different. We are still working through a lot of this, as this is the first build video I've done here. So I don't know what that means to you guys, and I don't know what that means as far as the build video goes. If that means that you guys might see some other things, I don't know yet. But what I do know is that we are still learning background sounds and echoes from recording and lighting situations, things like that. So just work with me on that, and hopefully this will be a learning experience for the both of us, and then I'll be able to find out what we do like and what we don't like. So guys, I sat down and I had decided, instead of doing one that we've already done and putting it in the showcase here just to generate more services and to answer those questions, why don't we do something we haven't done? And I went online, I did a little bit of Googling around just to see what I could find, and really, honestly, there's only a handful of companies really doing anything, and quite honest, they're pretty basic. I've seen a couple companies do like a single window here, or a single window and a window here, and of course we do a side window. I've seen a little bit of a Cobra nose done on some of them. They look kind of odd. Of course we have our services that you guys have seen. There's a couple of larger companies that I couldn't tell whether they were manufacturing a slide or if they were just modifying an existing slide. And if they are manufacturing, or even if it is just a service that's offered, there were only a handful of them out there in the wild. Whenever I would search for it, it was almost non-existent. So I don't know whether this was something that was done and isn't done anymore, or it was a service that was offered and obviously it's no longer in availability. So I thought, there's so many of you guys that reach out to us to have this stuff done. Obviously it's time to build something new. Sat down and had decided everything that I hate about this slide, and that's really the way that you need to approach this, is what do you not like? Because that's one, what we need to remove, two, the hurdles that we need to overcome. And really that's kind of where it's at. I mean, if you can overcome the stuff that you don't like, you can build whatever you want. So some of the things that I really particularly don't like about the 509, it's the same as the tactical, is these front serrations, the way that they are. And I say that kind of lightly, but the back and the front are obviously the same serrations, same style serrations. But these are completely flat and these are tapered in. Okay, so that's not too bad when you want to do some kind of front press check, hand over top, cycling, some kind of deal like that. But ultimately, it's one of those specific characteristics of the slide that say it's a 509. So every single model out there has something specific to it, and immediately, even if there wasn't a frame, a barrel, even if you took your hand and covered half of the slide, you can still tell what it is because of that specific detail of the slide. So that being said, we are creating custom work. The idea is, why don't we get rid of that so we can really build what we want, okay? So that's what we want to do. The front serrations I'm really not pleased with. I just don't like them. They're somewhat challenging to work with, work around. The other issue that we have is the slide is obviously tapered. So we see a straight edge. This obviously extends straight after the little curl here all the way to the back. But then this has like a downward slope, or it's kind of like a pyramid shaped. So it's tapered in. Obviously we see this on an absolute ton of model slides that are out on the market between the CZs and the Berettas, and the list goes on and on. But what that means is it's a challenging design, because when we put it in the vise like this and we cut down, we will actually be hitting the high side first and nothing from the low side. So we have to take all that stuff into consideration of how do we remove those serrations. And quite honestly, even after looking at all of the design work on paper and in CAD, still think it's going to be a challenging hurdle. I don't think there's going to be anything easy about it. I don't 100% know what it's going to look like, because I don't. We've taken measurements and I'm trying to figure out, what is the depth between the serrations, from the top to the bottom. So not only how far do the serrations go down into the metal, what is also the slope from the flat to the top. So those are a lot of different things that you have to take into consideration, especially when you're overlapping certain designs and certain step downs. It's like this one has to be this deep in order to remove that, and then this one has to be this deep in order to punch a hole, and then this one has to be this deep in order to remove the top. So there happen to be a lot of different things there, and how do they lay? And we're going to find that out. Maybe this is going to be a nightmare. I don't know. Hopefully we don't get into that. Hopefully it's some minor correction, adjustment, changes that need to be done in step overs and in depths and things like that in order to achieve what we want. But yet it's not like, yeah, we're never going to do this again. So sometimes you get that feeling of like, we're just not going to do it. So that's kind of the big thing here, is remove the front serrations. We do want to do a Cobra nose. We have a new style Cobra nose that we offer. We're going to be putting it on this one. We haven't really offered the C style Cobra nose on this all that much. It is offered, obviously. You guys have seen it in the picture. But it's not really listed on the webpage. So a lot of you guys don't bring it up about asking, can it be done, because you don't know it can be done. So hopefully this video will kind of correct a lot of that. So I don't really know how far we're going to go with this. In other words, are we going to do something to the rear serrations? I'm not 100% sure. What are we going to do to the top? Honestly, I don't even know. I haven't even drawn up the top yet. So with this being mine, there's really no rush on it. There's no budget on it. And there's really unlimited creative freedom on it, because it's mine. So we're just going to kind of see how far we get through this, and ultimately what are we going to come up with in the end. So I think it's going to be a real big building block. We do need to get the Cobra nose done. We need to see how that lays with removing of the front serrations and whatever design we're going to be putting over the front serrations, removing the 9x19, leaving the 509 on there for now, leaving the FN on there for now. There's no writing on the right side, so we don't really have to worry so much about that. But we're just going to kind of see how all of that plays out before we get to, what are we going to do with the top? Obviously, we're going to do an optic cut, so I don't know. We're just going to play this one step at a time, and Alright guys, let's take a moment here and review the work now that we are all finished with the cut work and back together. I do want to talk a little bit about those hurdles. We ended up having some issues with the build, and let's just kind of talk about the work. Let's go through those hurdles, and then there's a couple things at the end here I want to just kind of touch base on. So first and foremost, we ended up skipping a portion of the work, which would have been the rear grip section. We did talk about that at the beginning, that maybe there was an option there or an opportunity there to do something. We ended up skipping that. We also ended up skipping any work on the top. Now, one of the things that really came down to was how many hours did it take to actually do the cut work, and what would the cost be? Okay, so in the end, what that means is if we were to add rear grips, if we were to add some sort of a top window or a design, is it even going to be feasible for a customer to want to pay that because of the amount of hours and the amount of runtime and what all is involved? So at some point in time, you can't just sky is the limit, build everything. This is mine. It is a demo. We do sell demos. So, you know, for me, it ends up being a learning experience about what I do want to end up doing for my customers, maybe things that I would change for my customers or services that we may not offer for my customers. But what it ended up being was I really just thought it was overkill. And quite honestly, for where it would have had to be with the budget, I don't know if anybody would have ever paid it. So why show it? So it's kind of one of those deals where sometimes, you know, building a masterpiece really has no value unless you're just putting it on your own display for some sort of artwork, but there's no money being generated. So in this particular case, it was new services that we wanted to offer and hopefully educate on. So that didn't make any sense. So shave the side down here. Nice change there, I think, overall. The main reason we ended up doing that was the 9x19 needed to be removed, and also because the serrations do come so low to that edge. So if you go back to our video and you look at it at this angle, you actually see how far those top serrations or those front serrations come over to this flat zone here. And that was one of the reasons that we did a shave there. So ultimately, I think it was a really good idea. We ended up doing a step down, a window, stepped it down far enough to remove any remnants of the front serrations here, because once again, as we talked about at the beginning of the video, it was lower on this side, higher on this side, tapered, right? So had to make sure that we came down far enough on this edge to remove the serrations on that edge. Now, one of the things that I know there's a handful of you guys in your mind that are saying, because you're machinists and you're like, why don't you just rotate the piece up and make this higher and this lower, and then you would have been digging deeper in here and less in there. It's definitely an option to do something like that, but at the end of the day, we are trying to look at ease of configuration. What that means is we're not running a batch of these. We'd only be running 1 or 2 at a time, and we really don't want to mess with the setup on the CNC machine to adjust the angles of the vise or adjust the angles of some of the other pieces for one part and then have to go back and recalculate and reset to 0 for all the other parts that get machined this way. So, you know, sometimes you got to look at the whole picture, and that is how many of these are we going to do, and if we end up taking these in, how is this going to affect anything else that we do? So that was one of the reasons. Guys, let's talk about this Cobra nose. Man, that thing is just straight up wicked. So I ended up really wanting to show some barrel out the end. In this particular case, we ended up working with the factory barrel and not an aftermarket threaded barrel, anything like that. So I really did want to show some tip of the barrel here, obviously the side here. Really pleased with it, just overall how it looks. I like the aggressive front nose section. A lot of meat up in here. So if you happen to own one of these, or if you want to just kind of follow along, there's a lot of material up in this front zone section, like a ton. So by us doing a step down hole, it allows us to give us a weight reduction or a reduction in size overall, and just the visibility is a big change. So really pleased with the way that came out. Ended up skipping the top window. Honestly, for structure, rigidity, I just didn't think it was there. We probably could have lasered something, done a slim window or something up here. I just didn't, one, I thought it was overkill, and two, because we had to cut so far to the rear to get rid of these serrations. I wouldn't say we're like super far into where the lockup area is, because this is really our deepest part. This was just kind of a scallop on the edge here, but it really did turn into, let's try not to weaken this thing any more than what we're already doing. So the top, if you guys don't know, these tops have a super thick top plate on them. They're actually thicker than what you'd find on like an M&P or a Glock. The thickness of them is actually very, very durable. So I would dare say something like a knurled top, like you guys had seen in the earlier picture, is probably an option. I would probably skip a window just because of how much material we've taken off. So I think that's probably the best choice. Optic cut in the rear, upgraded to all black. What would be suppressor sights? Probably not going to get a great view of focus through here, but you guys get the idea here. Of course, I'll include some pictures. Ended up going with tungsten as our color. Guys, we're going to put this down. I want to show you the barrel. The barrel ended up being sent out before you get all happy about it. This is not a service that we offer, okay? Obviously, we can get these done. The biggest issue is that something like one of these neochromes, or what you would find like an oil slick or a tropical, or call it whatever you want, the idea behind it is that we really can't guarantee what it's going to look like when it comes back. And with that being said, you know, we can't have a vendor rerunning things because we have a customer wanting blue or only greens or green and blues, but no, you know, oranges or yellows or pinks. So that's one of the reasons that we don't offer it, because there's really no way of warning the customer when they purchase services online that, hey, what you get is what you get. And with that being said, you know, we don't want to take that chance because obviously there's money involved with sourcing this out to a third-party company. There's prep work involved on our end. Sometimes there's laser work involved. So these happen to be a lot of different things that are a compounding problem when we start, hey, let's do a logo. Hey, let's do prep work. Hey, let's send it off. Oh, you don't like it. Let's go back to black or something. We end up losing money all the way through the process because we've spent time and money getting it done and getting it processed, and then you're not happy because you were hoping it was all pink or all blue or whatever the case is. So really like the way that it came out. I think it's a killer looking barrel. There's no doubt about that. However, unless you're buying one of our demo guns from us with a barrel that's already done, or here's the or, you go to our hardware tab and the barrel's for sale. Because sometimes we may take a batch of 10 barrels and do 10 hive barrels for a Glock 19 in this. You can snag one of those barrels. But as far as coming to us with a customer provided barrel and wanting it done, it's just something that we're not going to do because you know, there's so much randomness to that pattern that there's just no way of telling whether you're going to be happy or not. So it's something that we're not going to offer. Once again, you're more than welcome to purchase a barrel that is already coated because you can already see what your results are going to be. Let's slip this guy into here. I like that. Very nice, guys. I'm going to put the spring on here just so we don't lose any parts here. Barrels don't go flying or anything. So really like the way this came out. Uniformity on that color is killer. In other words, we're getting the same consistency of polish throughout and reflectiveness throughout. So that multicolored barrel looks absolutely awesome, and it still stays with that same consistency. So some of it's not matte and some of it's not high polish. It's high polish all the way through. So really pleased. Guys, we're going to put the whole thing together now. We have a frame. This is going to be probably some sort of an upcoming build video. I'm working behind the camera, so we'll just see how it goes. Okay, and we happen to have an extended mag because we don't live in a communist state in North Carolina, or at least not yet. So, guys, overall, really like this. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed this. New projects are always challenging because honestly, we just don't know what we're gonna get, right? I mean, obviously there's drawing work challenges, there are cut work challenges. We go into the finishing and the cleanup and how does everything lay? You know, what do we get in the end with rigidity? You know, once we actually have holes in a slide, what does that look like? So ultimately, real safe build here. I think it was a really nice change. I'm not sure it's gonna be for everybody. You know, a lot of you guys happen to really like the front serrations. So, you know, half of you guys are probably gonna be like, nah, I hate you. So, and that's perfectly fine. You can hate me. But the idea is that we are trying to change the market. We are trying to develop new things that the market hasn't seen. We are trying to work on new firearms that normal companies don't even look at. So that kind of just happens to be a little bit of the background of our business and kind of where we're going, and that is let's continue to work on some of the things that, you know, the market isn't super saturated because it's not a Glock. So really pleased with that. Guys, I want to talk to you about something else. I want to talk to you guys a little bit more about laser work, and the reason why is that for the last 2 years or so I've been sourcing parts, and what I mean by that is this is hardware parts that you can't find anywhere. So I've gone through the process of sourcing parts for a new laser that's on its way. This is one of our builds from our current laser. So obviously this is a P320 grip module, and we offer this on the webpage now. Now, hang tight on that because we're going to have a sale running really soon when the new laser comes in, and the main reason we're doing that is because we just want to get new product into you guys, into the hands of you guys, just to kind of show you a little bit more. So there's a couple of companies out there that do what they would call grip sculpting, and I'm not going to throw any business names out there or anything like that because I don't want you guys to look them up. But the idea is that they're not really like this. This is actually like, you know, getting pretty far down there. This is about a 1/16 inch thick, somewhere in that neighborhood of actual material removal with flat bottom. Okay, so take that into consideration when you're talking about having something done. Once again, we're going to be running a sale, and we're going to have a couple different patterns that are going to be out, but these are mostly going to be for the new SIGs that have the circular logo. If you happen to have one of the older grip modules that is more of kind of like a dome shaped here, and it doesn't have the logo, we won't be offering it, or at least we're not going to be offering it right now. Most of the stuff is obviously going over to the new one. The idea here is look at the clarity of the bottom of the engraving. okay? So it's not all ruffled and you know, gross looking. It's actually, honestly, it might be more smooth than the actual grip itself. We'll try to add a couple of pictures in here. So guys, we are trying to perfect our laser stippling service. So ultimately, as now we're into a new building, we are waiting for the FFL paperwork stuff to clear. So we're still in that transitional time. We should be, who knows, by the time this video comes out, we may actually have it. So, but with that being said, back to the laser. We ended up, you guys know me, we've built lasers, we've sold lasers. We do not sell lasers anymore, okay? So I know that there's some old videos and people are like, I saw in one of your videos that you said that you sell lasers. Well, we don't offer it as a service anymore. We're so busy doing what we're doing and designing new things, we just stopped doing it. You know, and I don't mean that negatively upon any of the buyers or anybody that wanted to be a buyer and didn't sneak in and didn't get one in. But the idea is that we just really just don't have time for it. And you know, there's no negativity there. It just happens to be that that's just not where our business structure is at. But what we are after is utilizing our new laser for laser stippling and doing it on frames that other companies just really won't touch. Now, once again, we have a couple of different companies doing the Sig ones, but all of them are like a surface engraving. Of course, these are two different sides. So if you look at these, so we'll be offering, let me bring this down. We'll be offering this, these patterns, which will be more advanced than this once we actually do our YouTube video, but we'll be offering these patterns as an option for your Sig grip modules. We do anticipate we're going to start getting into some of the other markets, which would be the Polymer 80, some of the other versions of the Polymer 80s that are coming out. I know that there's like a new Sig version that's come out. So quite a while ago, and I totally just stopped talking about it because it was going to cause a conflict, especially with our laser buyers. Quite a while ago, I had worked on a pattern or a formula with the laser that would work with all polymers. Okay, so, and I know that may sound odd to think that, but there is one formula that can work with all polymers. Okay, so it will work with Glock, it'll work with Sig, it'll work with CZ, it'll work with all of them. You guys have seen the Sig stuff, you guys have obviously seen the Glock stuff, you've seen Polymer 80 stuff, I've done a CZ. So, you know, I've added these little tidbits of what is an option and what can be done, but I've never really talked about it. And that's kind of where we are with it now. One of the pieces to the puzzle that was missing was our new laser, because the current laser I have does have a little bit small limitation in doing some of that laser work. So we've overcome that by buying a new laser. Hopefully in the next 30 to 45 days, everything will be in. Basically, the laser has to come. I have to disassemble it, and I've got to put about 4 or 5 parts in there that I had to really source out over the last couple of years before I bought the laser. Something that you guys, I know we're getting way off in a rant here, but something you guys don't really understand is that, you know, lasers are a 1064 NM laser, but that's the laser source in the software frequency tuned. So the actual laser sources themselves have a lot of different ranges of frequency in them, and we're not just talking about, you know, the frequency tab on the right hand side or your NM or whatever. We're talking about the laser source itself ranges in its actual frequency. So, you know, it can go from 900 and some of them go all the way up to, shocker, but 1800. So anyhow, if you can figure out how to utilize the laser above its 1064 frequency, normal frequency range, then you obviously can produce new stuff. So will we do another video? I don't know. Once again, we don't sell lasers anymore, so at this point in time, it may not hurt to just educate to a degree. I just haven't gotten that far into it yet as to what I want to do. But guys, if you have not been following us on Instagram or YouTube or Facebook, do so. Tons of reviews on our Facebook. Instagram is usually the place to go. This picture was posted hours, if not days, before the video came out. So that's definitely a thing to do. And if you happen to have a request for work, please send us an email. We see so many people on our YouTube channel like, hey, how much does that cost? Guys, I cannot quote via YouTube. I cannot just put a post in there on how much things cost. It's not a good idea. If it's a service that we don't offer anymore, now it's still listed somewhere and somebody's going to continuously ask us for it. Or it could be deemed as advertising sometimes through YouTube. So they start looking at that as, oh, here's a link he already quoted. Okay, so now he's selling on YouTube. So there's a lot of little things like that that as YouTube changes their policies over time, you don't want to get hung by them. So guys, you need to send an email, okay? Down in the bottom left-hand corner in the last 15 minutes of this video has been our email address, please send us an email. There is a contact field on our webpage, NCEngravers.com, that you can actually go there and just fill out the form. But that is the correct way of processing an order or just receiving a request. So guys, if you happen to need anything, let me know, and I'll guarantee you're going to be very excited about the laser video when it comes out, because there's going to be a lot of cool things in there.